Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I am your host, Ed Dentzel, and I hope everybody has had a great week. It's been an interesting week. Of course, if you've been following the markets, it's been tough to have a very good week. Seeing your investments, your savings going down, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that again today on the show. I have a disc golf tournament this weekend that should be interesting, being that I haven't played in a tournament since the beginning of September, end of August, beginning of September, whatever. Yeah, it would have been Labor Day weekend. And haven't really been playing that much, been concentrating much more on my work recently. Just have to cross my fingers and do my best, and we'll just have to see. And the interesting part is, since I kind of have cut back on my disc golf, is that I've started going to the gym again, which has been going very well. And mixing disc golf and weightlifting is probably not the best thing for my shoulders. Specifically, my left shoulder. I'm left-handed, if you don't know. So I've had to go easy on the shoulder workouts, and even like tricep workout, bicep workout, anything that is hard on my elbow as well. So I'm not lifting as much as I can in those areas. Been hitting the legs pretty well and the chest pretty well, but have to go easy on the shoulders and the elbows if I want to continue to play disc golf. It's just a little too much work between both for those particular joints, especially at my age of 45. Although I have to say I feel fantastic. Just feel fantastic for 45. I have no complaints otherwise. Before I get started, you can email me at edwarddentzel@reagan.com. Would love to hear from you during the show. And also, I'm on Twitter, Dentzel Domain, all one word, no space in between. I'd love for you to find me there. And if you want to tweet me during the show, that would be cool. Or if you just want to follow me, send me a message. I will find your message and respond to you. So let's get to the show. I have to admit that I found Fox Business, a streaming live version or show website online of Fox Business. As I've told you, if you're new to the show, you should know that I have TVs, but they're hooked up to DVD players. I don't have cable. I don't have satellite. So if I ever want to watch anything, I have to find it somewhere on the internet. And I've been watching Fox Business because of what's been going on regarding the Chinese currency, markets, oil. And, it's really truthfully one of those things that if you weren't involved in it, it would be fascinating to watch. If you didn't know that there were millions, if not billions, of people who were suffering because of the devaluation of the currency and oil prices going down and the stock markets going down, it would be fascinating to watch. But there's another part that I've seen on Fox Business. Today I saw it. And they do get into politics there. It's just not an entire financial network. They do have political people on there. And this is going to go toward the subject of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and what Bill Clinton has done with other women in his life and whether he raped them. And yes, they were talking about this on Fox Business, which I got to say is a little weird. But if they're going to talk about it, then I have to talk about it. These couple of younger women, and when I say younger, they're definitely younger than I am, who went on with Stuart Varney. Stuart Varney is a hoot, by the way. He is a hoot. I can see why he's so popular. Great personality, but do you get a lot out of his show for financial information? I'm not so sure. But he is interesting to listen to and watch. But he was asking them about these allegations against Bill Clinton and whether it's going to affect Hillary in any way. And pretty much both of these girls, and one was on 1 hour and another one was on in the next hour, both kind of said the same thing, that this is all political, and we don't even know if, nobody even knows who Juanita Broderick is, and they're just allegations. This is what they're going to do. See, you're not, and I know you think a lot of conservatives like those answers, but I'm telling you this, before those women go on there, they get their talking points from the Hillary Clinton campaign, first of all. Second of all, the Clinton campaign test markets these responses. And although these women's answer, I'm watching it and I'm just shaking my head. Just the average, me, the conservative, taking out my analyst part of me, just taking that part of me, just putting that to the side. I'm shaking my head and saying, I feel so bad for these two girls. Just as a person, for these women to get up there and say that and to be hacks. And that's what I've tried to tell all of you. Maybe in the end, all of these women who vote Democrat and don't mind gun violence and don't mind the rape statistics, maybe they're just hacks. Maybe they don't change the way they think and the way they vote just because they're hacks. And that's what I think of when I watch these two young women go up there and do what they did. Do what they believe personally. If they're in bed at night, I don't know if they're lesbians, I don't know if they're straight, I don't know if they're married, boyfriends. If they're talking to the most intimate people in their lives, are they saying the same thing? Is what I think about when I watch these women and what they have to say, how it's all political, and nobody knows who these women are, and we don't know if these women can be believed anyway. But trust me when I say they don't get free reign to just go on there and say whatever they want. They're being coached behind the scenes. There are talking points, and that's what they're going to stick by. You know why? Those are the even though I sit there and shake my head and say, oh my, but they're still saying that and going on national, international TV and saying that. Why? Because they think it's going to work. Remember, there's no law that says they have to appear with Stuart Varney. They know it's Fox business. They know what the questions are going to be, and still they don't shy away from going on there, even though they know that very, very few Democrats probably even watch Fox business. They have CNBC they can listen to, or Bloomberg, or something like that. They just don't see, as much as you're seeing it out there, that this is going to be a problem for Hillary Clinton. I really don't think she sees it as a problem. She just sees it as a nuisance. It's just another hurdle that she has to jump, and I don't think that she thinks it's a very high hurdle. And this is why, going back to a few days ago, talking about Bill's sex life, do you really believe that asking Hillary Clinton about Bill Clinton's sex life and these allegations is really going to keep her out of the Oval Office? Because in the end, that's the only thing that matters. Embarrassing Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton is not the point. The point is winning. To almost bring out my inner Donald Trump or my inner Charlie Sheen. The point is to win. The point is not to embarrass Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton. Because the problem is you can embarrass them and they can still win. Then what do you have? You really have nothing. Whereas I would rather win, and I don't care if they're embarrassed or not. But there's somewhere within all of this, it feels to me like this is a little bit vengeful. We have to remember that these women are out there. Paula Jones is still alive. Jennifer Flowers is still alive. Juanita Broderick's still alive. Monica Lewinsky's still alive. And they've all told their stories. And I'm not so sure they need us to speak for them. They seem to get a lot of attention. Even though I know that there are tons of millions of people who think they're lying, they've had a chance to tell their story for years. And so anything that we talk about now is not new. It may be new to those younger people who were just children when this was all going on, came up in the 90s. But to a high percentage of the people who are going to vote in November, most of them know about it. And it's already been figured in my opinion, to Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. And I know that they started the war on women, and we think this is the proper way to respond. I mean, the one woman, the first one, even said, well, hey, look at Ben Roethlisberger. And of course, that strikes a chord with me, being that I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, although I've only watched one game this year. I do plan on watching the playoff game this weekend, only because my parents are here. Because they're going to watch it, and love has to overcome, not hate, but love has to overcome, the despising of the Steelers picking up a dog killer at some point. But this woman brought up Ben Roethlisberger. She mentions somebody else, and it's just all political, and how those guys got away with it. I know the Ben Roethlisberger story. And his story is nowhere close to the stories that these women tell about Bill Clinton. Not even close. Not even close. And so, but they only go out there if they think that that is the proper thing to say. If they didn't know what to say, they wouldn't be there. It's not like Stuart Varney went out in the street and dragged these women into the studio and surprised them with these questions. I've told you, the proper political response to all of this, especially considering what has gone on in the United States in this year with murders being up, for example, the proper way to win this argument is not to keep it so narrow as to Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. The proper way to win this argument is to expose all Democrats and their relationship with crime in this country. And dare I say it, they have a pretty close relationship with crime. And then you take the vengeful part of it out of it, and then these women can't go on there and say that. Then there's not any he said, she said, they said, we said. It's just pulling out statistic after statistic after statistic and make them defend it. This, I know, I've told you, I think that Bill Clinton is not a good guy. Not a good guy. I think Hillary Clinton knows exactly who her husband is, and she just doesn't care. And you know what? There are millions of women exactly like that all over the world. I don't know what to tell you. There's women who stay with their men, who beat them. It just doesn't happen on the show Cops. I know that's not a show, it's on TV anymore, at least new episodes, maybe reruns. But it just doesn't happen on the show Cops, where the woman's getting beat, she calls the police show up, then she's suddenly defending her husband, and in the end, they both go to jail. That's happening all the time. And like I've said a couple days ago, we are risking, if we push this too hard, that we actually end up making Hillary Clinton look like a sympathetic figure, despite everything that she's done to defend her husband over the years. Remember, the issue is winning. The issue is winning in the political sphere. The Thunderdome, to go all Mad Max on all of you. The goal is not to get some sort of revenge on Bill Clinton. Even if Bill Clinton were charged with these crimes, I'm not so sure that changes anything. For example, do you really think that Bill Clinton having charges brought against him would hurt Hillary Clinton's chances? I don't think so. So you have to put it in that, I think you have to put it in that vein. A little too much revenge and thinking that showing Hillary Clinton's hypocrisy is going to help us. Whereas really, rape, crime, overall crime is a topic that is relevant this year because of what is going on. With Black Lives Matter and Ferguson and all of it, it is a relevant topic to domestic politics. And of course, there's a small bit, as I mentioned a few days ago, of it having a little bit to do with immigration. But we are missing the bigger picture if we just keep it to Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. The problem is it could be that going up against those two is easier, and maybe it's more fun than just talking about FBI statistics, and I don't know. Just seems to me that there's too many people on our side who want to relitigate the 90s. If these women have charges, and I think they do, they have viable charges against Bill Clinton, then they should just continue to talk about him because it's very personal to them. But it is not personal to the rest of us. What's more relevant to the rest of us is overall crime in the country, overseen by Democrats. That is the long-term win, the long-term play here, not going after Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton. Because like I've said, they're just going to send these women out here who are going to defend them. And they're going to say that, and a lot of people are just going to nod their head and say, yep, over it. We are not boxing them into a corner. We're not painting Hillary Clinton into a corner with any of this. So we might as well just move on. Let me move on to something else. Now, if we're going to move on from that, we're going to move on to another topic. The North Koreans. I have to talk about this. It's been a few days ago, but it's been on my agenda, just haven't gotten to it. I think about this time, it's obvious that what they detonated a few days ago was not a hydrogen bomb. My dad said something to me, and I tend to agree with it. This is not a provocation. Here's maybe a bigger point right now, right at this second. This is not the reason that China is having economic problems. The problem is not North Korea with China. It's not. Likewise, what is going on in the American stock market or in world markets has nothing to do with a bomb going off in North Korea. Nothing. We know the North Koreans. We don't like it. I wish we did something about it. We know the North Koreans are kooks. Kim Jong-un. They lie, they cheat, they steal. They make agreements, they go back on agreements. They're even worse than the Iranians. But what you're seeing in the markets this week has nothing to do with that. I think it's just, as well as my dad put it, he said, that little fat kid, that's what he calls Kim Jong-un. That little fat kid, he doesn't want to die. And in that way, I think that my dad is right. He has no foreign policy experience, but I think that's true. If North Korea starts something, it's not going to be of a nuclear nature. It's going to be what they've done. A little provocation here, the sinking of a ship there, sending some guys into South Korea and blowing something up. But it's not going to be anything nuclear because once again, Kim Jong-un doesn't want to die. He wants to live out his existence without having to worry about a nuclear bomb coming down on him. Whereas he may have convinced himself that in a conventional war that he can get away with quite a bit, and frankly, he's right. What North Korea has done over the last 10 years and the South Koreans that they've killed, they've gotten away with it. There has been no retribution like South Korean, killing some North Koreans somewhere. Really, you can't do that because North Koreans don't go anywhere. They're also protected. What we don't want to get into, what we don't want to see is a kind of escalation in this. Because as soon as I heard about this bomb going off, that, there used to be a time in history where, back in the 50s, where the United States would practice setting off a nuclear bomb, and then the Soviet Union would set one off just a little bit bigger, and then the United States would come back, set one even bigger, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then all those treaties that started were a way to stop this from happening. Just kept escalating. Each country kind of showing off what they can do. That's what we don't want to get into with North Korea. They set off a bomb, and then we, whether it's NATO or us together with the South Koreans or us together with the Japanese or all three of us together, we do something in response. Like an escalation just to show off. If you do that, you're playing into North Korea's hands. If you're going to do anything with North Korea, it has to be of substance. Now, what that could be, I'm not so sure. But we don't want to get into showing off. Oh, you want to set a bomb off? Well, you want to try to scare us? Then we're going to scare you. I think the people like that, North Koreans, I would say the Chinese as well, this is why we have to do something. If they're going to build an island, we have to show them, which is something of substance, that we're going to go near their island no matter if they like it or not. You have to do so. That's something of substance. Because they're going into waters that they shouldn't be in. And we're going to show them that they shouldn't be there. But if you're going to be there, then we're going to continue to sail and fly near your island, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's making a point. Now, how you make that kind of point with North Korea, I'm not so sure. I don't know. And as long as what is going on in China is happening with their economy, with their stock market, with their currency, the last thing that they're thinking about is North Korea. They're looking at their own problems. The Chinese government there is trying to manipulate their markets. They have enough to think about. At this point, it could be the Chinese government there is just trying to stay in power, knowing where their economy is headed very slowly. I was telling a friend of mine a couple days ago that watching this Chinese thing happen is like watching a guy jump out of an airplane with no parachute, then hit another airplane on the way down, then hit a helicopter, then hit a cruise missile, then hit a drone, then go through the branch of a tree, then hit the roof of a house, roll off the house, hit the awning on the porch, roll down off the awning, hit the dog, and then finally hit the ground. That's what this is. It's just all of these sudden stops followed by even more drops. That's what it's kind of like. So, we're not going to get any help. I've talked about this. I've theorized about regarding if the United States and China could get together to handle North Korea in a particular way. When the topics come up, that's been my attitude. Just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And dare I say it, we're going to get to that in a second, with Donald Trump and his attitude toward China, that Donald Trump is the kind of guy with his attitude toward China that he could actually drive China toward North Korea, that they get even closer. Kind of like Barack Obama and what he's done in making the United States closer to Iran, trying to work with them. This is what Donald Trump could do with his attitude toward China. Which I guess could lead me to the next topic and his idea that a 45% tariff on Chinese goods would be what he wants enacted if he becomes president. Of course, the first issue I think of is I'm sure in Donald Trump's businesses all over the United States, he has quite a few things made in China. Now, do you think he wants to pay more for all of that stuff? I mean, there's a reason that he and his company buy from there instead of from someplace else, whether it's the United States or wherever. There's a reason. Now, is he going to continue to buy from China if those tariffs go off? No. Which means probably we're going to have to buy from somewhere else. It's going to be more expensive. And what's that going to do to the profits of his businesses? They're going to shrink. Do you think Donald Trump would actually put up with that? Probably not. As Marco Rubio, and I saw Marco Rubio on Stuart Varney's show, he understands, and it's the most basic principles of economics. And this is the reason that I am not a big fan of businessmen. And when I talk about not small businessmen, but CEOs getting too involved in politics, even though I know, for example, where Carly Fiorina, what she did as CEO of Hewlett Packard. These are not economists. They do not understand what it takes for prices to be low. The truth is, most businessmen are colluders. They're going to work together to try to keep prices high. And they don't have anything to do with free market economics and bringing the best product to the market at the lowest price. That's not really what businessmen are about. I respect all people who go into business, but I'm not going to be fooled that they're actually economists. They're not. And they're going to handle their business and politics much like they handle their business when they're in business. And they're going to look for protection. They're going to look to manipulate this over here. They're going to manipulate that over there. And in the end, it feels more to me like this attitude toward tariffs is more just a fight of egos and not a fight of your economy against our economy. It's not a It's just a test of who can get over on who, and there's nothing about who is going to have to pay for this kind of revenge, which it sounds to me like this tariffs that Donald Trump is talking about. Does he not understand that the reason we have a trade imbalance with China is because they can't afford to buy our stuff? Does he understand that? Does he also understand if those things that were made in China were made in the United States, how much more expensive that'd be? Does he understand that? And that would eventually hurt most Americans. I mean, it would hurt the Chinese, I guess, take away from some manufacturing from them, I guess. But it would also hurt millions and millions of Americans. Yeah, there would be maybe some jobs created. So you'd benefit maybe 10%, maybe 5% of people, and the other 95% would have to suffer from it by prices going up. know. That doesn't sound to me like a very good trade-off, but I got to go to the break. We'll talk about this after these commercials. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.
You're listening to Red State Talk Radio, America's premier conservative talk radio network.
You critics don't define our honor. You try to shame us for doing our job. You teach children to fear us, crowds to attack us, and good people to doubt us. But we will never back down from our sworn duty to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. We wake up every day, put on our badge, strap a gun to our hips, kiss our families goodbye, and put our lives between the law-abiding and any criminal who threatens their rights. We serve people of every color and creed, men, women, and children in violent, dangerous neighborhoods, because they have the same right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as CEOs, movie stars, and the political elite. We are Americans, and we are the American police officer. We stand with the National Rifle Association of America, and the NRA stands with us. Together, we're freedom's safest place.
I know. We Christians are just as bad as Muslims who fly planes into buildings and video themselves sawing people's heads off and beheading kids and mutilating women and shooting people who draw cartoons. That's right. You better be just as wary of us Christians, because we don't mess around. Don't be insulting our Jesus, because you think Muslims are bad. Oh, man, don't push us. You think the Muslims are bad when they prey on people for insulting Muhammad? You're really going to get it when Christians pray for you for insulting Jesus.
It can be easy to take what we have for granted and not appreciate everything the men and women of law enforcement do for us every day. So to all my heroes out there, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for protecting my family,
my business,
my kids,
our community.
Thank you for listening to us,
for being there for me, for keeping me safe.
To all those in law enforcement, thank you.
This is Primo Mondoni, host of the Red State Town Hall. Join me Sundays at 11 p.m. Eastern on Red State Talk Radio, the dominant force in conservative internet talk radio. So, lock it in and rip the knob off.
This is Paul Preston, host of Agenda 21 Radio. Join me Monday through Friday on Red State Talk Radio, the dominant force in conservative internet talk radio. So lock it in and rip the knob off.
And we're back at the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I want to continue to talk about Donald Trump and these tariffs. Now, you should not think that on this particular topic, I'm picking on Donald Trump in particular. Maybe some other topics that I could do that on. But this idea of tariffs is popular. It's common. And the United States does have tariffs on all sorts of items coming into the United States. But that only serves to hurt the American consumer. And it's going to drive up prices. This is the argument I always make about everything. Yes, if tariffs were enacted, there would be a small part of the population that would benefit. Should companies pop up in the United States that start making those products that are being excluded due to tariffs. But everybody else would pay for it. This goes back to the 70s in the steel industry in the United States, and how it was eventually taken over by Japan and other countries. That at the time, those businesses wanted huge tariffs and trade barriers to iron and steel coming into the United States. And what that allowed, though, was for items to be cheaper. And really what the unions wanted, and that's what unions still fight for today, is for their wages to be inflated and for everybody else to pay for it. And they want government to be the person who causes all of it. So they get their comfy wages. We have to pay more for everything that this very, very, very small group of people make. And it's the government who protects these people. That's not what we want. That is not what I want as a free marketer. That's not what I want as a free trader, as a conservative. It just doesn't. It works in that you can pass a law, you can pass a tariff, and the market adjusts. If you want to say that it, quote unquote, works, it's not like a tariff on everything from China would cause the American economy to fall apart. But it would make it difficult for more people in the United States than the difficulties we're already having in the United States. You got to keep in mind something else, that I remember getting into an argument with a guy 20 years ago about free trade. And I asked him, well, what if you wanted, say there was a business in Massachusetts, and it wants to move to, because this guy was not for free trade. This guy was for trade barriers and putting economic walls up to protect American business. Because, well, workers need to be protected because of this dumping that these other countries do. I said, okay, what if you had a business in Massachusetts, private business in Massachusetts, and the business wanted to move to Arizona? So 100 people out of work would be out of work in Massachusetts. They'd have to go find something else. But you'd gain another 100 people in Arizona who would be working. How do you think about that? And it was funny that the guy said, well, I have no problem with that. And I said, I thought you just said that you don't want American workers to lose their jobs. I could have swore you just said that. But because it moves within the United States, that's different from you. I don't understand. I understand it because I believe in private property. If a person owns a business and wants to move it from New York to Nevada, he or she can do that. He or she owns the buildings, the materials, and the property. If she wants to sell it, then they can do that. But if the standpoint of, well, we're just trying to protect American jobs, well, aren't you hurting those people in Massachusetts if you move a business from Massachusetts to Arizona? Because the logic should be that you need to keep that business in Massachusetts, and the government should keep that business, shouldn't allow that person to leave, to keep those people in working if you're truly worried about American employees. So it's okay for Americans to lose their jobs if a business moves from one place to the other, but it's not okay if that company gets underbid by a company from another country. Well, I reminded the guy, the employee, he or she doesn't care how they lose their job. All they know is they're not working anymore. Right? So I just found that as some sort of double standard there. It makes him feel better that if the business stays in the United States, okay, well, then it's okay for them to lose their jobs. But if their jobs are taken by a company in another country, then that's wrong. Whereas I just say let the money go where it wants. If they lose their jobs, way it goes. If they don't lose their job, way it goes. Because you have to look at it from the employee point of view. They don't care why they lost their job, whether it's from tariffs, regulations, or anything else. All they care about is they're not working anymore. So that was and this was some guy with like various degrees. I got into an argument with a magazine that I was writing, and this was before email. I actually wrote him a letter, and we got into this exchange back and forth through snail mail. That's how long ago that was. And I think that I finally made my point to him because he never, after a couple messages back and forth, he stopped responding to me. I don't even remember the guy's name. So I understand my free market principles. So Donald Trump, though, not an economist, just a guy who is trying to win. Win by any means, no matter who it hurts. See, I don't really think he cares if it hurts American workers. Maybe he's convinced himself that it doesn't. But it does. And my concern, if he becomes president, that too many issues are going to come down to whether his ego is massaged or not. That's my concern. It's not actually about policy. It's not actually about facts and the truth or anything. It's just about whether he can win or not. No matter who else, no matter what the collateral damage is. Because there would be a huge amount of collateral damage that wouldn't affect him if we put up tariffs on products from China coming in the United States. I'm going to say it again. The reason we have an imbalance with them is because they can't afford our stuff. They can't afford what we make here. Our standard of living is too high. This is also the reason that we do business mainly, I talked about it yesterday, business between Americans with Americans for the most part. Whereas China does business, their economy, which they're trying to change, is done mostly in exports. We have to remember that. And that's something maybe that Donald Trump doesn't want to talk about. Sticking to economics, talking about a lot of economics this week. I hope this is entertaining. I hope this is helping you understand what's going on. You notice today that the jobs report came out. Unemployment still at 5%. Allegedly, 295,000 jobs were added. That is a number that was well above predictions. And I think people were thinking that, at least that's what they were saying yesterday, was that, well, with a good jobs report, the market will bounce back. We're going to have a good jobs report, and the points that the stock market went down yesterday, we'll get them back tomorrow if the jobs report is good. And what do you see today? Not exactly the bounce back that everyone predicted. And even though the jobs report was better than people thought it was going to be. And the drag down on the economy is still oil. And you just can't talk about it enough. That you would think that oil being at a low price would be good, and it's not. This is why, see, this is something that it's not that the average person is stupid, and I don't believe that. You know that I don't come to this show thinking like that. It's that really the average American doesn't have a very good education in economics. They look at prices and automatically think high, bad, low, good. And that's not really true. It's not. Yes, the price of oil may be benefiting people going to the pumps and they're saving money that way, but that's minuscule to the amount of money that everybody is losing in their retirement accounts, their savings, their 401ks right now. The $10, or let's even go up to $100 a month they're saving on gas is being dwarfed by the thousands of dollars that they're losing in their investments. Now, granted, it may be that we just are in a weird situation in oil markets these days where there is one sector of the world economy that continues to pump like it's going out of style, where everything else is slowing down. And this is what happens. The reflection you see in the market is, I think what you see is they know that this can't continue forever. And there were numbers being put in, and they wouldn't be surprised if oil went down to $15 a gallon. That is crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Something that I never thought that I would see in my time. Ever. But it's a combination of a slowdown in the world economy, along with a couple countries that don't want to stop pumping, along with an improvement in technology that makes oil easier to get and cheaper to get, but not so cheap that companies can make money at $15 a barrel. But the stock market for now is attached directly to the oil price, and there's nothing else, it seems, that can go on in at least the United States economy that's going to change that. Now, like I said, I think that if Saudi Arabia and Iran were to break out into something, then you'd see automatically the oil price and the market detach. Oil price would start going back up, and the market would continue to fall. But that's out of our hands at this point. That's something outside of the United States economy. And that's what makes this all so hard to predict, and you're seeing that fear in the market. And to a much lesser extent is the fear built on what is going on in China, even though we're connected and we don't like what they're doing, the manipulation. But their stock market for Friday went up. And I don't know how long that's going to last. Now, the reason it went up is because they decided to add some value to their currency between Thursday and Friday's market in China. But I don't know how long that's going to go on. That could go on until Monday, and then they just go back the opposite direction. And that's why I said it's kind of like that guy jumping out of the plane. You know, let's just get it over with. If the guy's going to jump out of the plane with no parachute, let's just let him fall to the ground, and however long it takes, and he's going to die, and that's bad news, but that's just the way gravity works. Instead, we have to watch this huge story, because the sooner that the guy hits the ground and he's dead, we can get on with the funeral and the family can grieve and move on with their lives. But as long as they're standing there watching this guy hit another plane and a drone, it only makes it all worse, because that's going to be emblazoned on their minds for the rest of their lives. And somebody's going to pick it up in a video and put it on YouTube. But this is kind of what that's like. If China's going to devalue their yuan, and if they have a number in mind, as much as it stinks, they might as well just go to that number. But they're not going to do that because the government is worried about itself. So until then, we are attached to an oil market that is completely crazy. So it's what the average person, I don't think, quite understands that. I was telling my dad last night when we were talking about this that I remember more than 10 years ago, but my liberal friends in Las Vegas talking about how the price of oil is so high, and so all of George W. Bush's buddies in the oil industry can make all this money. And the truth is, compared to what we were pumping back then, we're pumping loads more now. Or maybe not now, but just a year ago, 2 years ago. And the price of oil has been a lot lower in the last couple years than it was when George W. Bush was president. And still all of those oil companies making a lot of money. In North Dakota, Texas, elsewhere. Pennsylvania, natural gas, all of it. I remember liberal friends saying that. And think, that price of oil should be a lot lower. Just they have no idea about this stuff. No idea. But never confuse something that a high price is good and a low price is bad, or from a consumer point of view, a low price is good and a high price is bad. It may be the sign of something else, and that's why it pays for everybody to understand these markets a little better. And this oil thing is a perfect example, like I said before. People think, I'm saving money at the gas pump. Awesome. Yeah, but at the same time, you're losing a bunch of money in your investments too. What would you rather have? Would you rather have your investments going up and gas be $2.50, $3 a gallon, or gas be $1.50 and you're losing money in investments? Pick one, because that's where we are right now. That's where we are. You'd like both, I know. I know you'd like the price of gas to be $1 and your 401k to be going through the roof. But yeah, wouldn't the world just be a perfect place? Do not be fooled by low prices, people, especially in commodities. We talk so much about inflation. Deflation is worse. Deflation is worse. And maybe that's a topic for another time. I want to go to one more thing before I leave you on this Friday. Mike Huckabee. Seems to me he's going like Ben Carson. Is Mike Huckabee trying to undermine his own campaign at this point? I've told you, I think that Ben Carson has been trying to do that for a couple months. I think that he's finally, at one point, saw the White House and him sitting in the White House way off in the distance and said, nope, I really don't think I want to be there. And so these mistakes that he's continued to make, these bad showings that he's had. Mike Huckabee, and this comes from BuzzFeed, he was on somewhere, he did an interview, and he actually attacked evangelical leaders, people who have supported him in the past, specifically in Iowa. And he said, well, the reason they're not supporting me is because they know that if I were to be president, that I would solve all these problems, and then as much money wouldn't be going into these evangelical leaders' pockets. To which I say, well, to which I would say, you're the ones who's been friends with them, Mike Huckabee. Why didn't you tell us they were like this 8 years ago? Or did it just occur to you? I don't even know if that's true. I think he's full of it. But that doesn't mean it's true. I'm not there in Iowa. I don't know any evangelical leaders. But I guess he thought in making this argument he was making a good point, but he's the one who's been friends with them. He's the one who has gotten their support in past years. And this seems to me like the parting shot. This is like a battleship that's sinking and one gun's still sticking out of the water and there's still one guy who's alive inside the turret. And he thinks, okay, I'm going to I'm going to die anyway. I might as well just shoot one more shot off before the seawater comes in and I drowned. And as the battleship slowly sinks below the waves, it like fires off one more volley into the water, hitting nothing. This is what that sounds like. He's bitter. He thinks that they've left him in a lurch, have deserted him, and this is the way he expresses it. I've tried to tell you that I've never thought this guy was a good guy. Flim Flam Man. Mike Huckabee. Flim Flam Man. And this is what I always say. If you pressure these people on hard enough, they will eventually show their true colors. The problem is we've never been able to do that with Barack Obama. But with Mike Huckabee, he's desperate. He's not getting good numbers, and he's feeling the pressure, and then something like this slips out. I should say, I don't know if he's doing this on purpose, but it does. It's such an outrageous statement that you want to think that way. I think in this case, where in Ben Carson's case, it very well may be he's doing it on purpose. And Mike Huckabee, he's just plain bitter. And as a good Christian, you'd think he would know better than to say something like this. What about the Christian thing about just being nice to everybody? And if you're going to lose, that's just the way it goes. I wonder what happened to that. Flim Flam Man, Mike Huckabee. But you've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio, and I remind you, you can find my books on Amazon.com. Just do a search for Edward Dentzel. Love for you to read them. You can email me at edwarddentzel@reagan.com. Twitter, Dentzel Domain, all one word, no space in between. edwarddentzel.com is where you can go and see listen to all my old Red State Talk Radio shows. edwarddentzel.com/book. get the free first chapter of my next novel, The Comebacks. I'm on SoundCloud, Podbean, and YouTube. You can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook. Thank you for listening tonight, and I'll talk to you Monday night. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.